Hey everybody, sorry, still trying to get this set up here. I'm going to try and do a little bit more live reading today, about a total of 7 books, including my work in progress, Viktor, which as usual is going to be about 2 pages each. Tomorrow and Wednesday I'm off, other than Tuesday having an eye doctor appointment. You got a new pair of glasses, which I should be wearing right now. Hey Mama Fang. Other than getting an eye appointment and having a blood test on Wednesday, I'm pretty much wide open, so I'll be doing a lot of writing on Viktor because I'm really eager to get this done. I've got a cover release coming up soon. I'm still not sure about the date. Probably going to be the 15th. Hey, Varden. But that said, that's going to be another opportunity for me to do some live reads too. So if you want me to read from your book, just let me know. I'll be glad to do it. If I've read from your book before, it doesn't mean I won't read from it again. In fact, I'm more likely to if I've read from it before. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to go and get started with Viktor. I'm going to pick up where I left off in chapter 5. He just woke up from a dream or a nightmare that had him a little bit discombobulated, and then just kind of, being Viktor, refused to admit that it was scary. He just said, it was, that's not something that he said it in his own little way, but basically said, no, I didn't get scared of that. Anyway, so here we go. And by the way, real quick, Viktor is a vampire necromancer, or as Mama Fang called him, a vam witch, or I don't know if it's correct to call it a vam warlock. I'm not sure, but he is the villain from P. Mattern's Vampire Princess trilogy. It's an award-winning best-selling book, and she was nice enough to ask me to write the prequel, and I'm making pretty good progress on it, I hope. Anyways, he is a despicable, diabolical, sinister, evil, self-centered psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, you name it, all the bad things, but he's also very handsome, of course. No, it's not me. No, could be. No, but he's brave and at the same time cowardly, and he's a backstabber, so there's not any good things I can say about him other than the fact that he's an entertaining villain. So anyways, here he goes. Viktor took a drink of water. A piece of his tunic had torn off and was lying next to him. He picked it up and dabbed it with water, using it to cleanse some of the smut from his face. This action also dispersed some of the residual misgivings that were loitering inside his mind. A glimmer of assurance returned to him. Viktor was, if nothing else, a decisive man who viewed consequences as the aftermath of action. Life was war, and a wise man would abjure oaths and shun friendships, accepting only uneasy alliances. Hey, Kendall. Hey, Jana. Hey, Ashley. As such, there was no such thing as betrayals, and the only sin or treachery was to lie to one's own true nature. Such concerns beyond that were the dooms spit upon one by the cruelty known as conscience. Fie, he shouted. Men are given conscience so that they may be kings or pawns. I serve only temporary masters, and as I sit here, I swear my only oath that I'll be as a god as Lord Dracula is a king over small men. Viktor looked at his reflection in a nearby puddle and regarded his appearance. He saw himself a living dichotomy between the appearance of strength and actual might. To see him, one would presume a frail and starving man, the outlines of his bones all too visible. Oh, cool, awesome. More than he could count, he had been offered food by well-intended fools, accepting for no other reason than he enjoyed taking from others. The clash that his form represented was that, contrary to appearance, he had an almost ghoulish might in his gaunt and skeletal frame. His limbs, while bony, like thin blades of grass, had sinews that were like the strength of oaks. His legs and arms propelled his body swifter than most men could imagine, and his mind was as agile and quick as a leopard. Hence was it ever that a man like him could make a kingdom, or seize it. Hey, Melissa. His master, Lord Vlad Dracula III, was an extraordinary man whom he admired. He trusted no one, yet in his wariness walked confidently among his subjects. During one of Viktor's first audiences with him, he noted the presence of eye holes in the wall. They were not hidden, but rather displayed. An assassin or traitor would certainly ponder the outcome of any overt act. Viktor smiled. Lord Dracula walked with an easy but upright gait, enveloped by an air of supremacy that was both dark and yet serene. Viktor had stood in his presence numerous times alone. His lord relaxed in the knowledge that he would indeed forsake or betray him, but that the act would never be that day. Indeed, Viktor had developed numerous plots and schemes, but had always held back. It was not yet time. Gossip pervaded the kingdom of Lord Vlad's communing with the dead. Pervaded the kingdom of Lord Vlad's communing with the dead, and its questionable, even nefarious practice of the art of necromancy. Such a man would not be easily slain by a clumsy knifing in the back. More accurate still were what Viktor had seen with his own eye. A large, blood-stained bat ascending from Vlad's window on numerous nights. The subsequent finding of young and pale maidens, all living yet marked by something worse than death. It was this knowledge, this power that Vlad had promised, and if there was an oath that prevented Viktor's acting in betrayal, it was his own pledge to himself to take this power when the time became right. So he held back, partially out of proper respect for his lord's might and cunning, but also for the right opportunity. Still, he knew that should an opportunity arise that would reward his deceit and guile, he would not hesitate to kill him, even should it be earlier than planned. He reasoned as always that the world belongs to those with the will to take it. Dracula had become formidable and conquered much, but had grown complacent, even happy with his plot of land. Viktor had no such limits on his ambitions, as Lord Dracula would learn. "I am not born king, nor destined to be one, but someday I will be as like a god." He shouted this, I can't shout right now, echoing inside his tiny cave even as he listened for the sounds of dogs and soldiers, who it became quickly clear had moved on or given up their chase. "Good. It is time to continue my journey. I have a small present to deliver." Okay, and that's a chapter break there. Hey Jim, hey David. I'm going to move on to the next book, and this is going to be from Ray Roberts. I have not read from him before, but I'm going to read from him now, and this is the cover right here. Let me show you. So Aaron R. Roberts, or Ray Roberts on Facebook, and it's called Still Life. I've not read from this before, so I do not know what it's about, but we're going to find out. But I know it only takes place in the 50s and 60s, so we'll see. One second here. Elsewhere, Kentucky, 1956. For my best friend, Pepper. We're inseparable at all times. As the years go by, I find myself wanting to return for those carefree days. But at the same time, all it seemed I wanted to do was leave that little town. Conquer the world, you might say. Well, I did get out and haven't been back in years. They say you can never really go back home again. This time I have to, even if it's just to visit an old friend one last time. "Get out of my trash!" I heard from behind me. I was doing my usual rounds of looking for glass bottles. I dropped what was in my hand and turned around slowly. It was the first time I had been to that side of town. I didn't know anybody over there, but I was sure about to meet one. "Do you know how long it took me to gather those up?" a deep voice asked me. "No, sir, it didn't seem like anyone lived here." "I'm sorry. I'll put them back and be on my way if it is okay," I said. "Well, it's not okay, and I don't think you'll be going anywhere. Stealing is against the law, and I don't like thieves," he said. I just stood there in shock. "I only wanted a couple of bottles to trade in so I could get a sandwich," I told him with a gulp. It's not what I was going to do with them, but he didn't need to know that. If it would get me out of his eyesight, I would have told him anything. "Well, in that case, I can put you to work. If you're willing to work for me for a while, you can buy all the sandwiches you can eat. Won't you come closer so I can get a good look at you? I've not seen you around here before." "Are you new to town?" he asked me. I just shook my head no and shrugged my shoulders. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? You seemed like you had a mouthful a moment ago," he said. I just looked at him. I gave him the most confused look I could conjure up. "Oh, I see. You're brave enough to go through my trash, but too scared to have a real conversation with me? Boy, ain't you something else," he said with a snarl. "I ain't scared. I'm just trying to figure you out. Usually when I go through someone's trash, they just yell at me and tell me to be on my way. No one ever wants to talk to me. What makes you so different?" I asked him. "Well, I could use a fiery spout like yourself to help around here. I'm not as young as I used to be, and I got things I need done that I just can't do well anymore," he told me. I walked in a little closer so it wouldn't appear that he was yelling at me. All we both need was to draw a crowd. I am not where I belong, and he's an old man yelling at a kid. He had one of those voices that just carries. He kept talking as I kept walking. Before either one of us really knew it, we were at least an arm's distance apart. "Not seen you around here. Are you new to town?" He looked at me through squinted eyes. "Nope, born and bred here. My entire family... Sorry, my throat. My entire family grew here. Tree grew here. Our roots run deep in this county too, I informed him boastfully. Don't you think you should grab your bike before it gets run over? I hate to see it ruined because I distracted you. You know what I mean? He told me as he nodded in the direction of the alley. Yeah, my mom would skin my hide if anything happened to that. She traded her second sewing machine for it. I was so underfoot she wanted me out of the house, I told him. Well, I can understand that. I would also understand if you just grabbed those top few bottles and scram, too. Okay, and that was the sample of that book, and that was Still Life by Aaron R. Roberts. Let me show you here. Okay, so real quick, since I have the Kindle open, I'm going to read from Richard Chizmar. And this is Wendy's Magic Feather. I read from this the other day, Wendy's Button Box Part 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and read again from the Look Inside part, the Chapter 1. Hey, Mariam. So let me show you the cover. It's a really cool cover. And notice the foreword by Stephen King. Hopefully someday I can be this successful. Hopefully we all can. Okay, let's see. Okay, just let me, 1 second. On Thursday, December 16th, 1999, Wendy Peterson wakes up before the sun, dresses and layers for the cold, and heads out for a run. Once upon a time, she walked with a slight limp thanks to an injury to her right foot. But 6 months of physical therapy and orthotic inserts in her favorite New Balance running shoes took care of that little problem. Now she runs at least 3 or 4 times a week, preferably at dawn as the city is just beginning to open its eyes. An awful lot has happened in the 15 years since Wendy graduated from Brown University and moved away from her hometown of Castle Rock, Maine. But there's plenty of time to tell that story. For now, let's tag along as she makes her way across town. After stretching her legs on the concrete steps of her rented townhouse, Wendy jogs down 9th Street, her feet slapping a steady rhythm on the salted roadway until it runs into Pennsylvania Avenue. She hangs a sharp left and cruises past the Navy Memorial and the National Gallery of Art. Even in the heart of winter, the museums are all well illuminated, the gravel and asphalt walkways shoveled clean, our tax dollars hard at work. Once Wendy reaches the mall, she notches it up a gear, feeling the lightness in her feet and the power in her legs. Her ponytail peeks out from underneath her winter cap, rustling against the back of her sweatshirt with every step she takes. She runs along the reflecting pool, missing the families of ducks and birds that make it their home during the warm summer months, towards the obelisk shadow of the Washington Monument. She stays on the lighted path, swinging a wide circle around the famous landmark, and heads east towards the Capitol building. The Smithsonian Museums line both sides of the mall here, and she remembers the first time she visited Washington, D.C. She was 10 that summer, and she and her parents spent 3 long, sweaty days exploring the city from dawn till dusk. At the end of each day, they collapsed on their hotel beds and ordered room service, an unheard of luxury for the Peterson family, because they were too exhausted to shower and venture out for dinner. On their final morning, her father surprised the family with tickets to one of the city's pedicab tours. The 3 of them squeezed into the back of the cramped carriage, eating ice cream cones and giggling as the tour guide pedaled them around the mall. Never in a million years did Wendy dream she'd one day live and work in the nation's capital. If anyone questioned her of that likelihood even 18 months earlier, her answer would have been a astounding no. Life is funny that way, she thinks, cutting across a gravel pathway in the direction of 9th Street, full of surprises, and not all of them good. Leaving the mall behind, Wendy pulls frigid air into her lungs and quickens her stride for the final home stretch. The streets are alive now, bustling with early morning commuters, homeless people emerging from their cardboard boxes, and the rumble and grind of garbage trucks making their rounds. Wendy spots the multicolored Christmas lights twinkling her bay window ahead and takes off in a sprint. Her neighbor across the street lifts a hand and calls out to her, but Wendy doesn't see or hear. Her legs flex with fluid grace and strength, but her mind is far away this cold December morning. Okay, and that was chapter 1, again, of Wendy's Magic Feather. Let me show you this again, the cover. I'm going to show you the other book, too. Let's see. There we go. Really cool, isn't it? And let me just show you this here. Look at these others. There's Wendy's Button Box, co-written with Stephen King, the great Stephen King, one of my favorite authors. Oh, okay, and Girl on the Porch. I'll have to read that another time. She's got a lot of books. Okay, well, anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Wow, that's really cool. I've never been to Washington, D.C. Someday I hope to. Okay, the next one is by Ashley Olivier, and this is called The Black Thief. It's a manuscript for The Black Thief, Chapter 1. Hey, Steve. I need my glasses for this one, so bear with me for just a second. And I should be wearing them anyways, but I wasn't. Okay, one moment. Winter's ice-cold wind swept through the streets as the city woke to take on the day. Already, some merchants here and children there were dropping from frostbite on the docks at the edge of the river that cut through the city, their corpses feasted on by dark and curious creatures that hid within the shadows. Enya coughed at the unusual stench of ash and bone wafting through the air, waving her gloved hands in an attempt to ward off the dust, burning her brown eyes while Carson followed to suit down the alley. A bomb had just gone off. Another one of the rebels' attempts had given the royal family a message. This time, their target was one of the diplomats stationed in the city. Mr. O'Connell was fond of running children to death in his factories and rolling in the money he gained from it. Those same factories also happened to be funded by King Eamon of Skea. Some king he was. His idea of ruling was hoarding all the money for himself and his rich counterparts while letting the people starve. She witnessed enough of that from her time tending to the palace horses as a child. "You think the king will get the message this time?" Carson asked, kicking aside rubble while they made their attempt at escaping the scene before authorities showed up to the factory. At this point, Eamon was desperate to squash the rebellion. He didn't want any neighboring countries to think him weak, but Enya knew he was as spineless as a shrimp. "Hey, Soleil, how you doing?" "I hope so. That was a lot of gunpowder. It better not have been for nothing," Enya scoffed. The bustling crowds of the city didn't help the ringing in their ears when they finally neared the street, breaths frosted in the cold. The city was towering and intimidating to most newcomers, but Enya spent most of her life out here fighting to survive. Tall buildings and busy roads full of carriages and wandering businessmen filled their view as they searched to see which street would lead them to the Bowman's pub. A siren sounded off in the distance over the noise. "Damn all the saints! They found us!" "Let's go!" Enya ordered, and they sprinted down the cobblestone, narrowly missing a few construction workers trudging off to work. "Oh, thanks, Mama Fang." Her long black waves whipped behind them in the frigid air along with the tails of their jackets. Curses followed them from behind, and a policeman grabbed her by the wrist as soon as they turned the corner. In an instant, the officer's other arm, wielding a gun, was ripped into the air by her free hand. He fired out a shot, and Carson grabbed the baton hanging at the man's wrist. With a swift move, he clocked the policeman in the back of the head, causing him to drop the weapon. Another blow from Enya on his temple laid him down on the ground. Laid him flat on the ground, unconscious. Enya and Carson breathed heavy, but there was no time to lose. More would be here soon. "No point in waiting around unless you want to take the dirt naps with the wraiths," Enya snapped, and they continued their escape, booted steps pressing hard against the ground the faster they ran. A few people grunted and yelled when the duo pushed them aside in an attempt to get away. A wide black carriage swept out in front of them on the street, blocking their path. "It's the police! What done for, Enya?" We're done for." Enya immediately pulled out her pistol and Carson his, aiming towards the driver. Usually their gang would be there to back them up, but she let them take a break for a drink. Oops. She could see now that was a mistake. Several armed men hopped out, pointing their rifles at the two. "That's a lot of ammo for 2 teens. "Drop your weapons!" one shouted. Enya and Carson looked at each other, hands now in the air. He looked to be the chief of police, Kelman, with all of his medals and the same famous mustache. "I will shoot!" With a frustrated sigh, she threw hers forward. Carson released his and kicked it over. The weapon slid across the pavement towards the man who spoke, narrowly missing his brown boots. Okay, so that was 3 pages. I do got to move on. And again, that was, it's a book in progress called The Black Thief by Ashley Olivier. And the next one's going to be, especially since she's online here, is Soleil Daniels. And she sent me her book on PDF. And wow, this cover is creepy. And that's a compliment. It's not an insult. This is a creepy, freaking awesome cover. Look at this. I love this. Don't get me wrong. If this is a real woman, I'd still sleep with her, but still creepy. Remember, it's unfiltered. Well, it's unfiltered Monday for me, but it's my Friday. I don't work the next 2 days. Really, I'm gonna show you this cover again. I kind of did a little bit quick there, but wow. That is a good cover. Hey, Dan Dotson's online. I'll get to you next, promise. Anyways, here we go. And this is called Half Born by Soleil Daniels. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. It's Soleil, right? If I'm pronouncing it wrong, let me know. Howdy back. I'm still laughing about that castle. It'll be a funny joke later. Prologue. The shrill ring of the telephone brought my attention away from the plate full of vegetables that lay in front of me. I hadn't really eaten much of the salad. Mainly I'd pushed it around with my fork and looked at the array of colors. Green, orange, purple, and red. The red always attracted me, tempting, but when I popped the little red cherry tomatoes in my mouth and bit down, they always proved as a disappointment. The taste wasn't what I had expected. It was not what the color had promised. Yeah, parapets. It's kind of an inside joke, but, and when I do my cover release, I'll explain it later, but yeah. It always reminds me of that scene in Blazing Saddles. Oh, I'm just out walking the parapet. Yeah, damn right he was. Oh, okay. My mother gave a sigh in the third ring and pushed her chair from the table so she could stand. She went to the living room and I heard the small click of the phone. Click of the phone leaving the receiver, followed by her sweet voice saying, "Hello." Pronounced splat. I got lost there. I missed that, Soleil. I didn't get it. I'm sure it's funny, but you have to let me know. Hey, Ray. I could hear the angry tone of a man on the other end of the line, but his words made no sense to my 4-year-old mind. When my mother replied, I could hear the worry in her voice. Oh, Soleil. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, Soleil. I turned sideways and leaned my weight forward so I could slide off the chair where I sat. My feet dropped through the 3 inches to the floor, and I made my way to the living room. The voice of the angry man grew louder the closer I got. The voice of the angry man grew louder the closer I got, and my mother glanced up, wild-eyed, with tears streaming down her cheeks. She looked sad and scared, causing fear to bubble within me. "Mommy, what's wrong?" The man stopped his angry rant. He spoke more calmly after hearing the sound of my voice. "Is that her? Let me talk to her." "Matthew, she's 4 years old. I have to go." She slammed the phone down in its cradle, and then she turned back to me, patting her lap. I climbed up to sit on her thighs and let her hug me, too tightly, to her chest. The phone rang again, making me flinch, and she freed a hand to pick it up. "What do you want?" "I told you. She needs to be with me. She needs to be taught." His voice was still angry, but calmer than before. "No, you can't have her." "I will have to take her then," he growled, and the line went dead. What a dick. Oh, sorry, rude. My mother dropped the phone and ran to the small bedroom we shared, holding me in her arms. After setting me on the bed, she grabbed a large suitcase from under it. She shoved clothes into the suitcase, not looking at any of them as she did so. She stopped what she was doing and left the room in a rush. I stayed where I was as I heard her punching numbers on the phone. It rang through, and a different man's voice answered on the 4th ring. I was too frightened to listen to what was being said, even though I recognized the voice. Frightened, I didn't want to know what was happening. A minute later, she walked back into the room and knelt in front of me. She looked at my face, smiling through tears, and said, "Sweetie, could you go into the bathroom? I'm sorry, can you go in the bathroom and get our toothbrushes, toothpaste, and the hairbrush? Anything you think we'll need. Grab it." "Mommy, what's going on? Are we leaving?" I asked, not really wanting to go. There was a park and lots of other kids to play with. I liked it there. "Yes, we're leaving, honey. We've been here too long. Don't worry, I promise everything will be all right." She smiled again, trying to calm my fear, I think, but her voice was shaky. I dropped off the bed, my feet hit the wooden floor silently, and I walked to the bathroom. After grabbing a bag with a zipper from the cabinet under the sink, I began picking up items and putting them in it. I grabbed everything in the bathroom I thought was important. Toothbrushes, toothpaste, our hairbrush from the counter, and the shampoo and conditioner from the bathtub. When I walked back to the room, my mother had the first suitcase closed and was working to close a second, smaller one. I knew that all the clothes we had fit into those 2 suitcases. They always did every time we packed up and moved someplace new. Though this time was different. We'd never had to pack so fast before. Okay, I stop by the kitchen, then we'll go to the car, and we're out of here. We'll get some fast food somewhere along the way. Her voice was calm, and her face was no longer streaked with tears, but I could tell she still held fear within herself. The smell of it permeated the air in the room. She picked the luggage up off the bed and headed out of the bedroom door. I started after her at first, until I remembered something and stopped. "Mommy, wait!" She turned, and I ran back to the bed to grab my large teddy bear and a rainbow-striped quilt. The quilt was barely big enough to wrap around me, and the bear was so big it was nearly half my size. I put the quilt around the bear, tying it like a cape, clutching both to my chest, and then I walked to my mother's side. She turned back around and continued, walking with me, trailing behind her. When we reached the kitchen, she opened a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. It was full of cash. I didn't know how much, but she always had put money in it and said that she'd never know when it would come handy. "Hey, Teresa." I watched her glance around the room to make sure nothing was forgotten that couldn't be replaced. I only knew because she'd always done so, saying something like, "One last look before we go." That time was different. She didn't say the words, and I think she only looked out of habit. A thunderous pounding on the front door snapped both of our heads around. Uh-oh, this is getting good. Well, I mean, it's been good, but it's getting exciting. We looked at the kitchen wall like we could see through it to the door that was being abused. The frame of the door groaned and cracked under the force of the visitor's fists. I stared at the wall, bear clutched tight to my chest, when my mother's arms wrapped around my body. She carried me to the pantry, set me down, and opened the folding door. After moving a large sack of potatoes, she pointed at the open space below the bottom shelf that it had been revealed. "Hey, Joe." I dropped my bear in the opening and went to my hands and knees, crawling into the small cubby. I pulled my giant teddy bear back to my chest as she slid the potatoes in front of me. There was a small gap between the top of the bag and the bottom of the shelf that I was able to look through. She was about to shut the doors of the pantry when a crash came from the front door. When the crash on the front door proved whoever was pounding on it had the strength to beat it from its deadbolt and hinges. My mom turned around almost instantly, leaving the folding doors partially open. She stepped away from the pantry and closer to the table. She spared a glance in my direction before turning back to face the doorway to the living room. "Josephine, you'll give it to me now," a man's voice roared. "I'm in the kitchen, Matthew. No need to holler. It will only draw the attention of the neighbors. They're a nosy bunch around here, and they enjoy a show of blue and red when they can get it," my mother said, her voice stiff but calm. She sat in the chair she'd been in earlier as Art. His chin-length hair was a dark chocolate brown with an odd offset of light auburn highlighting it. His eyes were the brightest emerald green and streaked with a golden pattern. Let's see. "What is she? Just tell her to come here and I'll be on my way." With her, of course. "1, she has a name, and it is Coraline. 2, Coral is not only your child, but mine also. I carried her to term. I birthed her. I raised her. You left before she was even born. You have no right to just come here and take her away." The calmness in her voice turned to anger. "I left for her protection, and now I must take her for my own," he bellowed. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" She got up and out of her chair with such force that it fell backward to the floor. She stalked up to him and thrust her chest out towards his face. Maybe if he'd been taller, she'd have settled for strong eye contact, but the near foot she had on him didn't make that possible. Conflicting emotions flashed over his upturned face. Love, grief, longing, sadness, and lastly, raw, undeniable anger. The sad, strained whisper that left his lips was unexpected. "Please, Josie, don't do this. Don't." Soleil loved it. I love this. Is great. Okay, so I'll read from this one tomorrow. I think I found a new favorite author to read from. Okay, and the next one is going to be one of my other favorite authors is Dan Dotson, and this is her book Ephemeris. I usually have a cover of her book Heliopause that I use as a card of it. I use the bookmark, but it's in the other room. But I'm sure that I don't know if Dan Dotson's still on, but she can send you a link to her website, which is simply enough, jdanedotson.com. And if you go there, you can actually learn more about the characters because there's character art. There's a history of the
characters, background. There's science articles because she's a scientist. In fact, she has provided 50 science facts for me to use in my rewrite of Middle School Madness, which is getting really close to being done, about a third of the way, anyways. And this is book 2, Ephemeris. Book 1's called Heliopause, and this is the Quest Risen Saga. Book 3 is done and should hopefully be out later this year, and book 4 is in progress. So she's quite a prolific and skilled writer and a really good friend of mine. So, and I'm always happy to read her stuff because she is literally one of my favorite writers. Okay. And here we go, chapter 39. Also, I did a live read of her book solely on YouTube. So if you look in the writer Circus on YouTube, you can find my reading of chapter 38, 37, and 38. Chapter 39, The Planet Finders. Gala paced back and forth in front of the cockpit door. Ariel found her there and looked at her with her large, cool, peridot eyes. Oh yeah, there's the link. Right, there you go. At first, Gala did not see her, for she was so absorbed in a mixture of dread and uncertainty that nothing else seemed to exist. Oh, my pleasure. I'm going to read it again tomorrow if I can, okay? Gala, Ariel said quietly. She approached her wild-haired friend. She could see that Gala's hair reflected her inner turmoil as it shot in all directions. Startled, Gala looked up from her pacing and blinked to focus on her human friend. She's my friend, Gala thought, with a stirring wistfulness. I wish we were somewhere else and could just be friends, be away from all this. I know you've got to contact him, Ariel said pointedly. She watched Gala jut her chin upward. But that stone is yours, and he has no claim over it. Or you. And she seized her friend's hand. It's going to be all right. Just get it over with. The sooner, the better. Gala nodded. Ariel studied every movement of her face. I can't read your thoughts, Ariel said with a sigh. But I can tell you're pretty worked up over this. I can be with you when you call him. Would you like that? Gala's eyes shone like amber. Yes, please. She took a deep breath. They entered the cockpit and Rob swung around. Ariel shot him a warning look. Oh, here comes Rob. You're going to love this guy. This guy is a douche. I mean that in a good way, but he's a total douchebag. But in a funny way. Don't say it, she hissed. Fine, spoonbender girl, Rob grumbled. He stood and bowed down in front of Gala. My lady, he mumbled. Gala snickered in spite of herself. Go, Rob, she said. He winked at her from his precarious position and then straightened and left the room. I think if you'd been wearing a skirt, he'd totally looked up it. Ariel sniffed. Yeah, see, he's a douche. Gala grinned. Then she stiffened her back and sat rigidly in front of the comm screen. I'm ready. And I say, when she says she's ready, she does not mean ready for him to look up her skirt. She's ready to talk to Ariad. Ariel gave her shoulder a squeeze and sat in the co-pilot chair. Ariad, Gala rasped as she cleared her throat. The comm screen shimmered, and there he was. His irises like mercury, their pupils piercing even through the screen. She felt a jolt of rolling emotions, but fought them. Ariad, for his part, sat completely still. Yes? He asked calmly. I need something, Gala replied. She bit her lower lip. I need my geode. Ariad's eyes closed halfway, and even across space and time she could feel their intensity. As if he could see entirely through her, he arched his left eyebrow. Oh? He responded coolly. Why would you need that? First of all, it's mine, said Gala, feeling hot. So I should have it. Second, I think I may need it for my mission. Should I expect you here? Ariad asked, almost whispering. Gala felt waves of anger, mistrust, attraction, and confusion, all coursing through her simultaneously. She could feel her resolve slipping. At this point, Ariel reached over to Gala with her extended hand. Gala broke eye contact with Ariad long enough to glance at her friend, and she reached out as well. Their fingers joined. No, said Gala firmly. I'm not coming to your sky palace. We will meet in a neutral spot, and I'm going to need something else. Ariel's eyes bulged. Gala gave her hand a squeeze. Oh, said Ariad, pinching his lips together. What more do you need, Galadea? Protection, answered Gala, wincing from hearing her full name from him. You don't really need. For them, Ariad, not for me. Ariad sighed. Such as? I want this ship shielded with everything you can spare, she demanded. It's already a fine ship, Ariad remarked. It's one of mine, after all. No, the associates found it. I want it completely hidden from anything. I can't guarantee you that, said Ariad. Even if I try to boost the security, there will always be a risk. I understand, Gala conceded. Will you do it? I'm carrying precious cargo after all. And she grinned at Ariel. Ariad blinked. Very well. I do wish Kane had agreed to join you, though. I know. I tried, answered Gala, sighing. She felt a great sense of unease without Kane playing a role in any plans. Kane is really cool, by the way. As if something had gone wrong. She did not want to tell Ariel this, however, and maybe it would be all right, with Dagava be on board now. I'll program your ship to come here, Ariad announced. You're taking over the ship? She asked, her voice stern. Only so that no one on board gets the coordinates, murmured Ariad. Why would you worry about that? Gala wanted to know. Do you want a secure ship or not? Ariad countered, his voice bitter. Fine, snapped Gala. Do it. Buckle up. Hey, buckle up. I love that line, as we both know. Buckle up. I will see you soon, said Ariad, and his image vanished. Gala stood and dashed to the door. Rob, tell the crew to strap in. We're off, she told him hastily. Rob squinted with disdain. What's he doing? He muttered. Okay, I do got to move on. Usually I'd read the whole chapter, but my wife called a few minutes ago, and it might be important, so I want to finish my live read. But I'll read from this more tomorrow, because there's only a little bit left in this. Oh, no, it's still more left in the chapter. I was wrong. But that said, wait. Where'd it go? Oh. So I'm going to finish this tomorrow. Finish this chapter tomorrow. Again, this is Ephemeris, Book 2 of the Quest Risen Saga by Dan Dotson. Check out the website. She posted the links there. Yeah, my computer's a pain half the time. I need to get a new laptop. Oh, okay, so finally I'm going to go to Mama Fang and T. Ashby and Into the Woods. And I'm actually thinking that the reason Rob is mad is she heard strap in, and he probably thought she said strap on, but that's another story. Whoops, why did I open PowerPoint? That's not Kindle. Sometimes I can be such a fool. Yeah, Rob, the best way I can describe it is Rob is what I would call the anti-Mac Daddy. I don't know if people really say Mac Daddy anymore, but just saying. I had a roommate named Aaron, who's still a friend of mine, and this guy had all the worst pickup lines, really thought he was God's gift to women. And in his own defense, he did make a lot of, have a lot of dalliances with them, but they usually ended up with the women hating him because he turned out to be kind of a narcissist. Kind of the friend you're always glad to hang out with, but not when anyone else is around. Kind of a guilty pleasure to hang out with. Yeah, utterly shameless. Perfect. Yeah. He's basically, we all have that friend that he's fun to hang out with when you guys are just together watching a movie or just joking around. Especially guys. We all have that guy friend that's really funny and entertaining, makes you laugh. But then when you introduce him to people that you care about, you're embarrassed to know him. That's Rob. At least that's what I've gotten. That's my impression of him so far. So I'm opening up the Kindle right now, and while I'm waiting for it, just a reminder, if you are an author and want me to read from your book, just let me know. I'm glad to do it. Just a little bit of an update for me, again, since I'm waiting. I spoke about Viktor, which I read from earlier, which is about a third of the way done, and I intend to get the rest of the first draft done in the next month and a half. I'm excited because I finally finished the front cover, or most of it. I'm about 95% done. For my rewrite of Flight of the Cyrano. There's 3 books that I wrote a few years ago that did okay when I first self-published them, but my cover design was a little bit lacking, and covers do sell books, but also the format I used left justify, I should have used right justify, and I think I've grown as a writer over the last few years, so I'm rewriting this one, and it was originally called Flight of the Cyrano, now it's called Flight of the Cyrano is the name of the series, and, me neither, I'm looking forward to it. The book's called A Shattered Truce, and I just finished the front cover, the back cover's almost done, just a few more tweaks, and that's going to be coming out very, very soon, so I'm very excited about that, because it's anime inspired by my love of the old 70s and 80s anime series, like Gotcha Man, Star Blazers, which is my favorite show of all time, Robotech, Tranzor Z, Macron 1, Voltron, except I hate Pidge, as I said earlier in my video, and all those other 70s and 80s cartoons, even like Thunder the Barbarian. All those cartoons that had a lot of campiness. This is not campy, this is more Star Wars-ish in the fact that it's a space opera, and I don't try to make things too silly. But, you know, they all had a lot of things that were kind of shut your mind down and just enjoy it kind of action. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. So anyways, that's that. And I'm also getting progress on the Hit Mom, which I'm still doing some cover updates on that one. I'm still waiting for the Kindle update, which is why I'm still kind of babbling, just trying to keep your guys' attention while I'm waiting for this to load. I should have loaded it earlier, and I apologize. You know what? While I'm waiting for this to load, a little bit more of Dan Dotson. Gala and Ariel ran to the round room and strapped in. As soon as they had, the ship spun and shot forth into the blackness. Within minutes, they approached the junction and catapulted through its conduit of strobing lights, forking off a few times. Wow, my brain went in the wrong direction there. Forking off a few times to other junctions, all beyond their control. In less than 2 hours, the ship snapped to a halt above Ricoloy. Oh, okay, just loaded, so I just read next to paragraph. Sorry about the forking off thing. I couldn't help laugh at that one. My mind's really in the gutter today. That's what happens when I only get like 4 hours sleep. Okay, so we're going to read Into the Woods. This is by, well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who caught some humor out of that one. Of course, my laughing made it pretty obvious. This is by T. Ashby, or L. Ashby, and Mama Fang, P. Mattern, or Patricia Annette, who is listening in. And let me show you this. And yes, I'm going to upload this video later to YouTube. I haven't done the last two. Hey, Rob, I didn't write it. My friend Dan Dotson did, and, you know, I'm just jealous that I haven't used that term. Of course, she was talking about forking off, you know, the path is forking off in different directions, which is not dirty. I just made it that way. So here's Into the Woods. Let's having trouble. Let's see if I can do this again. Go back in there. Location 480. Okay, so go to the cover. I need to get one of T. Ashby's animated videos of this so I can show it to people. Now, Rob. Yes, I am. Try working on an assembly line for 5.5 years and see if it doesn't corrupt you too. Seriously, that is like the most blue-collar job ever, and it was freaking insane how nasty people got. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so here we go back where I left off. Dell turned the chat to the yield forecast for the foresting season and said if it was a good enough one for the company, there might be bonuses all around. Sylvie's attention drifted for a moment, and she turned her head to catch a glimpse of something furry and gray standing at the top of a knoll beyond the fencing surrounding the cottage. It was large and seemed strangely to be looking back at her. She was so intrigued that she got up out of her chair and went to the window to get a better look, but it had disappeared from view. "What is it, Sylvie?" Dell asked. "Yes, what is it, child?" Granny said, her voice tinged with concern. I thought I saw something," Sylvie answered. "It was gray and had a shaggy coat. Maybe a wild dog or a wolf or something." "Well, twere a wolf, it wouldn't be a surprise," Granny returned. "There are a lot of those creatures in this mountainous area. Always have been, always will be, I reckon." The sun was setting as Dell and Sylvie made their way back to the end of the road into town. Sylvie felt tired, exhausted, really. She was aware that Dell was trying to make conversation, but he seemed too preoccupied with his own deep thoughts. "And my son Andrew is home." "Andrew, I think it should be unlocked. Let me know if it's not."
Okay.
As they reached the halfway mark on their journey, it seemed that a pall had gone over the sun. The woods became suddenly darker, and Dell paused as he heard a rustling sound. "Stop, Sylvie," he hissed. "I hear something." Both of them paused for a moment. Sylvie found her heartbeat ramping up as she peered into the dense forest surrounding them. "Hey, buddy. How was your day?"
Good.
"Good." More rustling could be heard around them, and Dell quickly shoved Sylvie behind him as a large black wolf with a kingly ruff around his muzzle emerged in front of them. It growled low in his throat. Rrr, probably like that, I'm guessing. The growl was menacing and deep and carried in the atmosphere, causing shivers to involuntarily trace away along Sylvie's spine. Dell pulled a short axe from the sheath attached to his belt. The handle was short, but the blade was wickedly sharp and gleamed in the half-light. He brandished it in front of the beast, making an X in the air between them. Sylvie became aware that there were more of the wolves. Of course there were, she chided herself. Even in that tense moment, wolves hunted in packs, for gosh sakes. Dell had become aware of them, but kept his attention trained on the leader. and that was when it chose to lunge at him. He swiped the axe across its muzzle and it yelped, then turned quickly and sliced another as it rose up and across his throat. All of it seemed to happen in slow motion. Sylvie would remember later. The sound the second wolf made when it was wounded sounded almost human, because it probably was a werewolf. I'm going to guess on that one. And then, just when she was sure they were done for, the wolves were gone. Thanks. You okay? Del asked immediately, turning to her.
Oh, no homework.
Yay! No homework! Oh, yeah, good. Awesome. How'd that English assignment go? Awesome. His voice sounded shaky, and she nodded, and then threw herself into the shelter of his arms for a few seconds before he said, "Less vamoose before they decide to have another go at us. Hey, Karen." They hurried through the rest of the woods, and as they hit the clearing to the road to town, they found themselves whooping relief and even laughing. They had shared an adventure. They might have even cheated death, and their huge sense of relief made them feel buoyantly alive. I know what else they could do to feel buoyantly alive. Yes, we know what I'm talking about. They already did it once. Twice, actually. Del dropped the picnic basket and picked Sylvie up, twirling around twice before kissing her thoroughly. "What a rush!" he exclaimed. "That was 10 shades of crazy, Sylvie. No one will believe us." Sylvie laughed along with him. She had decided nothing felt as good as being in his arms. "Well, my roomie Tildy better believe me," she declared. "It's almost like a lame joke, you know. Here I am wearing a red hoodie, and we just met the proverbial big bad wolf." "True that," Del agreed, pulling her even closer. "But Sylvie, maybe I'm the big bad wolf, huh? Maybe I want to eat you up. Maybe I wanted to since we reconnected." She looked back at him intently, granting permission with her shining eyes. Hey, see, I was right. Okay, and that was the end of chapter 4. I do got to wrap this up. I'm probably not going to do a live read later, but for sure tomorrow. Again, just a reminder, if you are an author and want me to read from your book, even if it's not done, if it's just a work in progress, let me know and I'm glad to do it. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. I am going to load this up on YouTube sometime later today, and I'll let you guys know. And I'll see you guys later. I hope you guys have a nice night. Take care, and bye-bye.